I came from Thailand. I was born in a refugee camp. And I've been a Wisconsin Conservation Warden since 2016. The importance of being a law enforcement officer as a minority is you can bridge that gap between two communities. My best day as a warden would be knowing that I made a difference. We're at a turning point in our history right now where we can make a difference in the future. Nothing lasts forever if you don't take care of it. And that's why I became a Wisconsin Conservation Warden.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight to be part of our How to Become a Wisconsin DNR Warden. Presenting this evening is Warden Vong Zhang and Warden Amanda Kretschmer. Both are here to talk to you about what it is like to be a Wisconsin DNR Warden and to talk a little bit about themselves, give you a little bit perspective and some other highlights about this awesome career that we have here. And with that, I'm going to pass it over. Vong, Amanda?
Hey everybody, hope everyone's doing well tonight. My name is Amanda Kretschmer. I am the Brown County Conservation Warden for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Vong, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Vong Zhang. I'm the Jackson County Conservation Warden.
So tonight, me and Vong, as Sarah stated, are here to discuss career as a conservation warden. Before we get started, me and Vong are just going to give a little bit of a background about who we are and kind of how we got to where we are today. So Vong, I'll let you start off.
Yeah, so like I said, my name is Vong. To kind of give you a brief summary of who I am, I was born in Thailand, you know, as the video that we just watched shows. But I was born in Thailand, moved over to the United States at a very young age, settled in Wisconsin, and grew up in Oshkosh. During that time, growing up in Oshkosh, I got interested in the outdoors, mainly fishing. Went to college for law enforcement, criminal justice law enforcement degree, and was routed into the DNR world and applied to be a deputy conservation warden, so an LTE conservation warden. From there, I was successfully hired as a full-time conservation warden in 2018. And I've been stationed in Calumet County and Jackson County. I was stationed in Calumet for a year, and now I'm in Jackson.
Thanks, Vong. As I said, my name is Amanda. I'm currently the Brown County Warden. Similar to Vong, grew up enjoying the outdoors. I took a little bit of a different route than Vong. 8 years ago, if you would have told me that I would be in law enforcement today, I probably would have laughed about that. And here I am today. I could never do anything else. But I went to school for geography and was working behind the desk. I eventually got into the DNR, making maps, sitting behind a desk, love working for the DNR, but I just knew sitting behind a desk wasn't going to cut it for me for the rest of my life. And was able to network, went to Warden Career Day, went on some ride-alongs, and was fortunate enough to be hired in 2016. I started out in Sauk County, eventually transferred to Winnebago County, and now I've been in Brown County for just over a year now. So I guess we can get started into this presentation. So we're going to take majority of the time to talk about what conservation wardens do. And then at the end, there will be a Q&A session as well. Katie, if you want to hit the next slide, thank you.
So within the division, there are numerous different positions. You typically see just the conservation wardens working in the field, but there are a ton of support staff, including, the 200 plus conservation wardens, about 225, including lieutenants, captains, you know, those higher ranks. Then we've got our special investigative wardens. Those folks help with large scale investigations, including businesses, you know, those large scale investigations. And then we've got our recreational warden staff who are experts in ATV, snowmobile, boating, the recreational vehicle side of it. And not just that, but the hunting, you know, hunting and incident training and all that kind of stuff. So, and then we move into our environmental enforcement specialists. Those folks are the experts when it comes to the environmental enforcement, the realm that surrounds the environmental laws, and those are the folks that we look towards when it comes to stuff like spills, manure spills, CAFO farms, those types of things.
So one of the most common questions I get, and I would say probably most wardens get when someone is asking them about their career, is what's the average day like? What's a typical day like for a game warden, for a conservation warden? And you're probably going to hear a couple different answers that are very similar. Every day is different, and you know, it depends on the season. So one of the best parts about this job for me is the diversity and the variety. We wear a lot of different hats. As Vaughn just explained, within our division, there are not just conservation wardens. There's a lot of different people within our division, and we get to work with all these different people. So the variety does come with the season. So depending on the time of year, you're going to be doing different things. And not only depending on the time of year, but also your station needs. So, you know, in Brown County, I have the city of Green Bay, a more rural area, whereas Vaughn in Jackson County, I probably have more people in Green Bay than Vaughn does, you know, in the whole county. So I get a lot more, you know, environmental complaints, injured wildlife, those types of calls. So it all depends on where you're stationed as well. You may, you know, have a day planned in the summertime. You may plan, I'm going to go out on the boat and work 10 hours out on the boat and do boating enforcement. Maybe throwing a little AIS fishing as well. Your phone calls and there's a manure spill, and you know there's 500 fish dead. It changes your day. Your plans change quickly, depending on, you know, if there's a call, the weather, you know, or, you know, let's say maybe there's a fatal and you have to go and investigate it. So there's a lot of different pieces that kind of come into play in what we do. And that's what makes it so fun though, is every day is different. You know, in the 5+ years I've been doing this, I've never had 2 really alike days. One of the best things about our job is the flexibility as well. So we set our own schedule as conservation wardens. We aren't like a sheriff's office or police department that has shifts. And there's one exception to that, and we'll talk about that later when we talk about parks work, but we don't have your shift is 6A to 6P. You're on 5 days, off 3, on 2, off 4. We make our own schedule, which is really great because it offers us flexibility. If you have a family, especially, you can work a couple hours in the morning if you've got to do something with the kids, or, you know, you just want to take a couple hours off and go work a complaint in the evening, you can do that. It offers a lot of flexibility within your personal life. So I would say one of my favorite things about the job, and I know I talked to a lot of other wardens, is the flexibility, the variety. It's a very diverse job. We wear a lot of different hats, a lot of different opportunities to grow and to learn, and you'll kind of learn that as we go on through this presentation.
So to expand on what Amanda was just talking about, you know, why every day isn't a normal day. We enforce a lot of different things. We regulate a lot of different things. The DNR regulates hunting, fishing, trapping, environmental. We have state lands enforcement. We have recreational vehicles, forestry, you name it. I mean, the plethora of things that we enforce, and not just that, but the normal law enforcement duties, you know, OWIs, traffic enforcement, all those different things that we have to enforce. So along with that is the accident investigation. Obviously with wrecked vehicles and boats and ATVs, snowmobiles, comes the accident investigations, hunting accident investigations. That's a big part of it. And then, we don't just do the enforcement. We do what we're doing right now, talking to all of you guys and doing the education and the outreach, doing the outdoor safety courses, attending community meetings and events, one-on-one mentoring. So learn to hunt, we can participate in those events, learn to fish events, any of that. So the other aspect of it that some people see us, especially on the Mississippi River with those wardens down there, is a natural disaster response. The flooding response that we respond to, because we have the expertise in boats. We have those tools, and the sheriff's department around the state rely on us for the help with these natural disasters. Not just that, but tornadoes and strong winds and all of that kind of stuff. We do assist the sheriff's departments. We work hand in hand with all the sheriff's departments on these responses and these public safety incidences. So you'll see wardens do get involved with incidences like active shooters down in Madison that happened. I can't remember if it was a year ago or 2 years ago, but a warden got involved with that. So the other aspect of it, and this goes into the plethora of things that we regulate or assist with, but the injured and sick wildlife. We help our wildlife folks in the wildlife program with injured and sick wildlife, and we work hand in hand with them, either responding in Jackson County specifically with the elk. Obviously, those are a big animal that that the public actually really likes having, and they're either you love them or you hate them, but for the most part they're really cool to see, and I do respond to elk being hit on the interstate actually quite often this year, and we do help with that kind of stuff. So that's just the surface of what we do as a law enforcement agency.
So like Vaughn just went over that really long list. We'll kind of get into, over the next few slides, a little bit more detail on what we do. And again, Vaughn just hit the nail on the head though. Even though we're going to take, 30, 40 minutes to talk, this is, just surface level stuff here. We could stand and talk for a solid week about everything that we do. And there are things that you maybe do one time and you don't do it the rest of your career. But so environmental protection, obviously we work for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. Our goal is to protect the environment, to protect the resources. And that includes land, air, water resource protection. I mentioned before, and Vaughn did as well, that we, have our own division. And then outside of our division within the DNR, there's a lot of other divisions and bureaus, and we work with every division. And that includes environmental staff. I work, especially in Brown County, a lot with my environmental staff, whether it's wastewater, drinking water, agricultural staff, wetland staff. I'm working with them constantly. And it's a lot of fun because, again, you get to work with a lot of different types of people. So when, a call comes in or a complaint comes in, oftentimes wardens are the first ones to get the call, and we're kind of the boots on the ground. So in regards to environmental protection, we often, especially if it's kind of an after hours call, are going out to the field, let's say it's a spill, and we're collecting evidence, chatting with, maybe the farmer or, the sheriff's office, whoever's calling us on this. So we go out collecting evidence. But at the end of the day, we're really relying on environmental enforcement staff, these environmental staff, because they are the experts. I wish I could say I'm an expert when it comes to environmental stuff, but I'm not. I know what I need to do my job, and it's fun to continue to learn. So when it comes to environmental protection, very important, a big part of what we do. And we work cooperatively with other environmental enforcement staff and outside of our division as well, like I had mentioned. A lot of opportunities to learn.
So I really look at conservation as a whole, as kind of a three-legged stool. You've got your biological management, you've got your laws, and then the enforcement branch that ensures sustainable, ethical, and safe use of our resources. You know, we provide that opportunity for folks in the future generations, to be able to use and enjoy those resources. So the department manages and regulates these, you know, these laws and these resources so that everybody can enjoy them. And that's a huge part of what we do, is be a part of that three-legged stool to ensure that regulated conservation is successful. And based on history, regulated conservation has only benefited the resource.
Recreation, I apologize, is vehicle enforcement. So I mentioned before that as part of the DNR, protecting the resource is one of our main goals. Another big goal that we have is enforcing public safety. So the DNR regulates ATV, snowmobile, boat, off-highway vehicle regulations. And we want people to get out there. We want people to have fun. We just want to make sure people are doing it safely, so they're going home and the people around them are also going home. So we get to have a lot of fun. We get to, depending on your station, your part of your job is operating a boat, snowmobile, ATV. In order for us to successfully keep people safe and enforce these laws out on the water, snowmobile trails, ATV trails, we have to be out on the trails. And you can't really do that in your squad. So depending on your station, you're going to be potentially issued a boat, whether that's, you know, anything from something as small as a kayak or a canoe or a skiff, all the way up to a donzi, or like you see in this photo here, a safe boat. And if I'm correct, I believe that photo was actually taken on Lake Michigan in Milwaukee. And then in addition to boats, you're issued, you know, snowmobile, ATV, a lot of different equipment. It all depends on what your station needs are. If you don't have water, you really don't have a need for a boat. If you don't have, you know, ATV trails, maybe you don't have an ATV, or you kind of share an ATV with someone else in the event of a, you know, a search and rescue or a recovery, that type of situation. In addition to public safety, just like I said, we protect natural resources. We enforce invasive species laws, so AIS, aquatic invasive species laws. We've really pushed on this the last couple of years. We want to keep our waters clean and safe, so that is a huge part of what we do as well. We investigate wrecked vehicle accidents. I can't say it's my favorite part of the job, but I've learned that it is so critical and it's so important to bring, you know, if it's a fatal, especially to bring closure to a family. Or if it's, you know, a serious injury or just, you know, a non-injury accident, to be able to investigate and learn, this is what they were doing beforehand, this is what they happened during, and then this is what happened after. To be able to learn these things and educate the public on what they should be doing to keep themselves safe is really beneficial. And then we also do, and Vong had mentioned this, search and rescue. So we have specialized equipment. We are experts in certain, you know, boats, you know, underwater robots, you know, for searches. There's a lot of different equipment that we have. So sheriff's offices, fire departments, local PDs really rely heavily on conservation wardens to go out there and help them assist in these. I guarantee you, majority of the news articles that you see with a search and rescue, search and recovery type situation, even if it's not listed in there, I would almost guarantee that there's a DNR warden, you know, assisting in that, just because we have the equipment and, you know, we are the experts on certain things. So.
So another aspect of our job, and that has really become part of our identity, is the state lands enforcement, your state parks enforcement, state forests, those types of enforcements or patrols. So the Warden Authority, I won't get too heavily into that, but essentially we have full police powers on state property. We can make OWI arrests, drug arrests, you know, any of those normal law enforcement duties. And then to add to that, because of that, we do a lot more of that traditional law enforcement work with those types of, vehicle enforcement, drug enforcement. And then we do camping enforcement, all the NR 45, so Natural Resources Code 45, that relates specifically to state lands with camping and all those regulations that come with camping, where you can camp, how many vehicles, all that stuff. Touched on motor vehicle, the search and rescue Amanda touched on. Some of these state properties are ginormous. Like the Black River State Forest is a huge piece of property that adjoins the county property, which is also about half, those two properties combined is about half the county. And I think during the gun deer season, I helped out with 3 search and rescue events in the county. So it's very easily, I get involved with some of these things. So especially during the hunting seasons. And then we deal with forestry laws, timber theft investigations. It's very easy for folks it would be very easy for folks to go out in the middle of nowhere and harvest timber without permits or against the law. So along with the state lands enforcement, obviously there are those kiosks or the customer service stations at the front of the park, at the front of the state forest, wherever it is, where we have pamphlets and stuff. And I've sat at some of those and I've helped out customers, answered questions, provided assistance. I haven't done any presentations at those yet, but I would imagine with COVID restrictions being more lax, I would imagine that some of those opportunities would be there. So that's just part of what state lands enforcement involves, but essentially it touches on those 3 things. Your warden authority, your enforcement, your community outreach.
Education and outreach. We do a lot more than just enforce laws. Our job is a lot bigger than just enforcing laws. And really, in order for us to be successful within our stations and as an agency as a whole, we really have to build relationships with the community. We, especially as conservation wardens, first and foremost, we're law enforcement officers. And so we're public servants. We are here to serve the community, which is really fun. We get to get out into the community and go to a lot of different types of events. Now, the last year's been a little bit different with COVID, but I've got high hopes here for the future that we'll be able to get back out in the field and start attending some of these events. And we've learned to do them virtually as well, just like we're doing now. But the DNR offers safety classes, so boating safety, ATV, hunter's ed, snowmobile, that certain people are required to take regarding or depending on their age. We attend those classes and give law and ethics talks. It's an opportunity for us to, oftentimes our kids, to build relationships with the kids. And again, it goes beyond just talking about the laws and ethics, to really start getting these kids to trust who we are and understand that, we're law enforcement and you can trust us. We do a lot of different media outreach. And again, we've learned to do a lot of this virtually. It's been a different year, but like we're doing right now, a career talk, essentially is what this is. We go into schools, do career talks. We go to, local YMCAs, a lot of different businesses, and, do a lot of different types of events. It's something as, big as a outdoor expo, a boat expo, or something as small as a community event where people are just walking along the road picking up litter, which is so important. So it gives us the opportunity. We get to get out in the community, build relationships. Part of this job to be successful is building those relationships in the community. Like I said before, there's no set schedule. So when you're not working, unless there's another warden in your county, in Brown County, I'm the only warden. If I remember correctly, Vaughn, you're the only warden as well in Jackson County. When we're not working, no one else is patrolling. So it's really important for us to build those relationships with the community to learn, what do you want from me? What does the community need? So this is a really fun and another really great part of what we do as wardens.
So to talk about the career benefits, the more important questions, right? this job, you'll never be rich doing this job, but I can tell you every single day that you do this job is a world of a difference, because you get to make the difference. You are the difference, right? You not only provide public safety, but you help out people that are in crisis. You help out, you make contacts with people on their worst days or their best days. So you really do make a difference in that aspect. You know, you get to help a kid ID his first fish that he caught, or you get to take a picture with somebody that registers their first bear or their first deer, or whatever it is. So we get to make that big difference, and that's part of the benefit, is building those relationships, as Amanda was just talking about, with the public and with our communities. So collaborative work environment. We're constantly working with different people, constantly working with different departments, divisions, agencies, police departments, sheriff's departments, federal agencies like the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We're always working with collaboratively with everybody. That's how we get our job done, and that's how we do it effectively. So the other benefit is the training process. Not to get too in depth with it, but it's about a year, and during that training process, it's paid. You know, that's the one benefit, or the greatest benefit, is you get paid to do your training. You get paid to do all the kinds of training that we do, from ATV week, boat week, snowmobile week, whatever it is, you get paid to do it. The variety, the amount of different things that Amanda and I and every other conservation warden in Wisconsin has to work with. You can never have a boring day. You might have days that are slower than others, but you'll never have a boring day. The flexibility, you know, Amanda touched on it. We have the flexibility to make our schedules. We don't have to work 9 to 5. If you want to work 9 to 5 because of personal conflicts, you can do that. If you want to work 4 p.m. to midnight, you can do that. You know, depending on the seasons, obviously you gear your schedule towards whatever season's open or whatever the seasons bring, but you have the flexibility to change your schedule. And the fulfillment, which ties directly into making a difference, right? You are that difference. People almost call the conservation warden before they call the sheriff's departments. Not always the case, obviously, with emergencies, that's not the case, but with things that aren't emergencies, I've had folks call me and say, hey, what do you think I should do when it's not really in the realm of what I enforce? I tell them to reach out to the sheriff's department, but they make that contact with me because we've built that relationship, and they rely on me to be kind of their first point of contact. So that fulfillment is pretty much, you know, that's part of the job, and that's the best part of the job is being able to tie all of these things together and really make a difference.
So in mid-April, we will be opening our hiring process. We do not have an exact date yet, but it'll be sometime mid to late April. The best way to learn when this date is, because our hiring process, our recruitment is only open for a set amount of time. And I think there'll be a slide, there'll be a slide on another presentation, so I won't get into that yet. But subscribe, if you go to the Warden recruitment website, everyone on here, got here somehow, and I'm assuming a lot of you got on here due to your subscription to the Warden recruitment updates. If you're not subscribed to that yet, go on that website and subscribe to it, because you're going to get email updates, notifications, newsletters, different videos, all types of things. But most specifically and most importantly, when we're going to open our hiring process is I think is going to come out in an email. So that's going to be the best way to get that info.
Yeah, so like Amanda said, connect with us. We've got our Facebook page right on the screen there. We've got our Twitter, we've got our Instagram, YouTube. We've got our Wild Wisconsin Off the Record podcast that I don't know if one was released today or not. Katie, I don't know if you did that, but we do have that. Folks can listen in on those, and they're typically 20, 30 minutes. They could be an hour long. But those are ways to get into learning about the job and learning about what we do. If you have questions, send an email to the email that's on the screen there, dnrlecruitment@wisconsin.gov. We have wardens that are checking that email constantly to make sure that we are reaching out and responding to folks that are interested in this career. So, like I said, or like Amanda said, join us on April 6th at 6 p.m. to learn about the recruitment process.
All right. Thank you guys so much for helping. Amanda, did you have anything else to say?
No, I was just gonna say, Katie, if there's any questions, we'd be happy to take those.
Absolutely. So let's get your faces up here. All right. So let's get started with some of the questions we've received. So Stephen is wondering, when given permanent duty locations, are wardens allowed to choose or are they assigned duty locations?
Great question. I guess I can cover that. So our hiring process, when you are hired, once you get your final offer, typically you don't know what your station assignment is yet. And we understand that can be a barrier for some people. What happens is you go potentially through the academy if you haven't been through one yet, or you're going to go through an accelerated academy or to the field, to field training right away. Usually within a couple of months, they have the critical vacancies. So that's how they determine what the stations are, is they look at the state and they see where are our critical vacancies. Let's say there's 12 wardens, full-time wardens hired. They'll make a list of 12 or 15 stations, however many the critical vacancies are. And then essentially what they do is through the recruit class, they go based on state seniority. So whoever, if you have state seniority, even if it's a year and no one else does, you get first pick. And then after that, they go by date of birth. So basically oldest to youngest. Now with that being said, you get to potentially pick based off that list, but you don't just get to pick, unfortunately, where exactly you want to go in the state. Maybe you're lucky and the station open is where you want to go, and that's fantastic. Understand though, after your probationary time is up, we do allow for transfers. Me and Vong have both transferred, stations before. So there are opportunities to transfer once you've completed probation.
Yeah, so just to expand on that a little bit, it typically takes anywhere from 2 to 5 years, even 1 to 5 years to get to where you kind of want to be or close to where you want to be. So it took me about 1.5 years to get to where I wanted to be.
Perfect. All right. Vong, can you talk a little bit more about the LTE deputy warden and a little bit more about what that part-time position is like?
Yeah, so to expand more now, my experience with the outdoors really it was restricted to fishing growing up. I didn't have opportunities to hunt, snowmobile, ATVs, boat, any of that, mainly because of financials. I mean, I was a poor kid coming from a refugee camp in Thailand. There was no opportunity for a lot of that stuff because a lot of that stuff is expensive. So with that being said, the LTE position allowed me to get experience in a lot of those activities. I applied for the LTE position specifically at that time. It was an LTE hiring only. It wasn't a full-time hiring, but it opened up and I saw it as an opportunity to use my law enforcement degree as well as my love for the outdoors. And I took that as an opportunity to learn. So essentially what that was at that time, and it's changed now, but at that time, a deputy conservation warden or an LTE conservation warden was a warden that worked part-time with full-time conservation wardens. So it helped me because I was working with guys and girls that have been on the job for years, 10, 15 years. And I was able to learn from them and take, certain tools from their toolboxes and put them in my arsenal for my day when I became a full-time warden. So it was an opportunity to work as a part-timer to gain that experience before being kind of let go on my own to do my own thing in my own county where I was stationed.
And I'll just add to Vong's statements that if, potentially you're not sure about full-time, and maybe you're interested in an LTE position, we do that recruitment at the same time. So full-time and LTE positions are pulled from the same recruitment. So if an LTE position maybe sounds like something that you're interested in, it's going to be the same hiring process. So our full-time LTE positions are all from the same recruitment.
Great. And Amanda, you talked a little bit about being able to set your own hours. Justin's wondering, do wardens have on-call hours, or do you have to be available 24/7, or how does that work?
That's a good question. And so I will say, you ask every warden and they're probably going to give you a different answer. Per policy, there is nothing that says, you shall be working or on call 24/7. Now, understand, we are issued state issued cell phones. So I personally, this is my own personal self. I love my job, and I don't mind working. Currently I don't have, kids. I've got a puppy at home, and that's like the biggest thing, so it's different for everyone, but I carry my work cell phone pretty much everywhere I go, unless I'm leaving the state, or I really just need to unplug for a day or two. So in order to be successful in this job, you're going to have to answer your phone at 2:00 in the morning. Sometimes you're going to get home. You've just worked 12 hours and you take your uniform off, you eat dinner, and you're getting ready to get into bed, and the sheriff's office calls you and you got to go. You want the sheriff's office and the community to be able to trust in you and value who you are, because in Brown County, I'm all they've got. So if I'm not going, there's no warden going. Maybe the Marine warden, but if it's inland, it's me. So it's a hard question to put a yes or no on. No, there's nothing saying that you have to be on call 24/7. Absolutely not. We value that work personal life. I just was on vacation for 5 or 6 days last week, and I shut my phone off the whole time, and it was just what I needed. No rap or anything from anyone. People tell you take vacation. So we really value, and upper management, the higher ranks value that work and personal life balance. I'll tell you, in my 5 years doing this job, I've burned myself out some years. And I get to a point where I'm like, I need to take a day off. I need to take a day off. I need to take my scheduled day off. You get 2 scheduled days off every week, 1 day during the week, and then every other weekend off. So there's nothing saying that you shall be on call 24/7, but understand that there are some times when you've got to pick up that phone at midnight, at 2 a.m, 5 a.m. And there are sacrifices that you do make in this job, but at the end of the day, the pros and advantages and the fulfillment that Vong talked about are worth every minute of it.
Great. Can you guys talk a little bit about the educational requirements? We're getting quite a few different questions around that.
Yeah, so I can start this one out. So the educational requirements beforehand, and I know our training captain didn't want us talking about this on the meeting, but as of right now, maybe I'm stepping ahead, but as of right now, there are no educational requirements. So before it was 60 college credits, and now we are essentially waiving that and allowing folks to get those requirements, get those 60 college credits within 5 years. So that aligns a lot with State Patrol and other state agencies. And it opens up the door for other folks that may or may not have gone to college or got halfway through college and decided it wasn't for them. So it is an opportunity for folks to get in. I personally actually have an associate degree. So I have 60 college credits plus some for my police academy initially. But I don't have a bachelor degree. And it was the norm for the longest time to have a bachelor degree from Stevens Point, and that's just not the case anymore.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. With regard to residency, are there any sort of residency or tie to Wisconsin type requirements?
So so I understand the question, when they're applying, they're not a Wisconsin resident. Is that what their question is? If that's
Yes.
okay.
Yep.
Absolutely. I forget, I'm trying to look quick. The only requirement, so we have people applying from all over the United States every year, and that's totally fine. We want people from all walks of life. So the only caveat to that is you have to be able to obtain a Wisconsin driver's license. And I think that a part of that is, DOJ as law enforcement officer in the state of Wisconsin, and just our DNR fleet as well. But yeah, there's no residency requirement other than once you're hired, you do have to obtain a Wisconsin driver's license.
Great. And do you need any sort of law enforcement background?
I'll touch on this, Vaughn, and then if you want to add, and the only reason I say I'll take this one is because I didn't have any law enforcement experience before I was a conservation warden. I was working for the DNR, so maybe that, obviously gave me a little bit of, maybe 1 point more than somebody else, but I had no law enforcement experience. And like I said in my intro, 8 years ago, if you would have told me that I'd be a law enforcement officer, I really would have laughed at you, because that was never something that I thought about. Does it benefit some people like Vaughn? Absolutely. If this is something you want to do, and you have that experience, when it comes down to two of the exact same people on paper, and during the hiring process they have to start getting nitpicky, that may bump you up from somebody. But we have no requirement stating that you have to have prior law enforcement experience. Now, let's say you go through the hiring process and they, the hiring panel just thinks that maybe you need a little bit of that law enforcement experience, and they're not certain you're ready for a full-time position yet. You may be offered a part-time position, an LTE position, which is great because you're still getting a warden job and you're still getting paid to go through the academy. Good question. There's no requirement. I didn't have any, and I know quite a few people that have been hired as wardens that didn't have any themselves. Vaughn, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, prior to my police academy, that's really the only law enforcement experience that I had was my police academy. And I guess if you count the LTE conservation warden position as prior experience, but it doesn't, it obviously helps you, like Amanda said, if it comes to two people that are exactly the same background, everything, education, if somebody has law enforcement experience, it definitely helps.
Fantastic. And is there any sort of an age limit or minimum that needs to be met with this?
So this is another thing I think that we're not supposed to mention, but on our website, it's always been 18. And if I remember correctly from what we were told the other day, I believe it's getting bumped up to 21 years old. Is
there a limit in terms of, you have to be under a certain age at all from that perspective?
Absolutely not. A gentleman, me and Vaughn used to be on the same team. He was in his mid 50s, low 50s when he got hired. One of the best wardens, one of the best law enforcement officers, you'll ever meet. We've got no age limit. Usually every year in our recruit classes, we've got one or two people that, they, for 20 years, 30 years, they were like, I always wanted to do it. And I just knew that I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't try. And they're so successful because they have so much life experience that, someone like me was 25 years old that I didn't have, or maybe someone like Vaughn, that was younger. So great question.
For sure. If you're interested, is it possible for you to apply for both the full-time and part-time positions?
Yeah, so like Amanda mentioned earlier, those processes now are run at the same time. And what I mentioned earlier with mine being separate, that was before kind of before where we are today. At that time, we were really looking at LTE positions and hiring them as a separate category simply because we needed positions or needed support for certain teams. I was a boating deputy conservation warden, a boating LTE warden. So that's primarily what I was hired as. Right now, the two processes are the same. So if you want to apply for both, you can certainly do that. If you want to apply specifically for an FTE or a full-time position, you can do that also. Or the other side is LTE part-time only is what you want to apply for. You can do that as well. So there's opportunities to apply for both.
Awesome. And what percentage of recruits have military or veteran experience? And is this any sort of an advantage?
Oh, that's a great question. I will say from this past year's class in Vaughn, I know that you've instructed them as well. There was a handful of them that had some military experience or were still active military. Percentage-wise, every year, it varies. Some years we have, like I said, a handful of people. In my class, we had one person that had prior military experience. Can it give you an advantage? Absolutely. Any life experiences that you have are going to make you a better candidate. Let's say you were a military police officer. Obviously, that law enforcement experience is going to give you an advantage. So any life experiences, especially the military, could absolutely give you a bump up maybe on somebody else that doesn't have those life experiences.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've ever done a specific study on how many recruits are of military background, but I can tell you, regardless of everything, we look for the most qualified candidate. If you have that experience, great, but you have to be the most qualified candidate that we're looking to hire.
All right. And I'm just scrolling through here to see if there's any that we haven't asked yet. Is it an advantage at all if you speak multiple languages?
Ron, I'll let you take that away.
Yeah, so I'm bilingual. I speak Hmong and English. Obviously, I speak English, but it's very, there are a couple of trains of thought, especially with the conservation warden position. There are so many, Wisconsin, realistically, in terms of the outdoors, depending on the part of the state that you go to, it can be very diverse in the outdoors, especially with fishing or hunting. You've got a large Hmong population in the state of Wisconsin, and it helps me tremendously because I can communicate with them. And a lot of Hmong folks participate in hunting or fishing, and that helps me in that aspect. So where it really helps is because when you are at a young age, and studies show this, but it helps you with critical thinking from that aspect of it. Not to get too deep into that, but it does help you. It helps you on your resume. But realistically, as I would refer to what I said earlier, is we're looking for the most qualified candidate. So if somebody only speaks one language and they're more qualified than the person that speaks 7 languages, we're looking to hire the most qualified person. So it will help you, but we're looking for qualified people.
Great. And we have time for just a couple more questions. We have a couple different questions related to if you already have some sort of law enforcement experience. Is there some sort of an accelerated academy type situation that you can go through, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so to be honest, it's been different kind of every year the last few years on what they've done, and COVID really kind of put a wrench in things this past year in the academy. So it is kind of a case-by-case basis. You could, come on with just police academy, and you may be put into our law enforcement academy. Again, it's paid. Remember that if you do have to go through academy, it's all paid, room, board, absolutely meals, everything. But some years, and again, it's just case-by-case basis, we do put people through an accelerated academy. But we can't say whether or not, yes, you're going to, if you have 3 years experience, 5 years experience. It really is a case by case basis. We, have our own law enforcement academy. It's the DNR Law Enforcement Academy. Now it's DOJ standards, it's the DOJ Academy, but we're able to, by running our own academy, really kind of put a DNR twist on what we do, and get you into those scenarios and those situations that you may not have experienced with your prior law enforcement before. So I know I'm rambling, I apologize, but the answer to that is possibly, but it's just a case by case basis and year to year.
All right, and we're getting some questions about the hiring process and when recruitment is starting and things like that. So for anyone who missed it, we are going to have another session on April 6th at 6 p.m. to learn more about the recruitment process. I'm going to go ahead and put a link for where you can register to join us for that in the chat here in just a second. But also we'll go ahead and send out an email tomorrow morning with a link to the replay of this session. And we'll have a link in there to join us on that second webinar series to talk more specifics about what that recruitment process looks like and some tips and tricks to kind of help you make sure that your application is looking great. So with that, we have just a couple minutes left. Amanda and Vaughn, do you have any last thoughts that you would like to share?
All right, Vaughn.
Nope. The only thing I have is I appreciate you guys hopping on and joining us today. To reach out to this many people is tremendous. It's hard to fill the room with these many applicants or these many participants. So I appreciate you guys hopping on and watching and listening to us talk about the career.
I'll stick with Vaughn, guys. Thank you guys for joining us. The only thing I'll add is if you have any questions, you're really interested in this career, check out our website. Go to the DNR website, type in Warden recruitment, and we've got a really fantastic website with a lot of info, a video. Subscribe to our emails, but feel free to reach out to any of your local wardens as well. I can tell you everyone at this agency is willing to answer the phone or respond to some emails to any specific questions you have. I will tell you, just in case people are wondering, we can't do ride-alongs right now due to COVID. So if you're reaching out to people for ride-alongs, the answer is going to be no. But definitely reach out to me or Vaughn or your local warden, whoever. And good luck. Hopefully you guys learned something tonight.
All right, and one last question before we go. I'd love for both of you to share your favorite thing about being a Wisconsin Conservation Warden with everyone here tonight.
Amanda, I'll let you start.
It's so hard to pinpoint one thing. I love this job so much, and anytime I maybe have even a bad day, maybe just someone didn't like me for whatever reason, or I didn't like the way something happened, I always just think this is the best job in the world. Personally, I love being able to be in the community. I'm a pretty social person. Being able to serve the public, learn about the public needs, it's just so fulfilling to be in law enforcement in general, and to do what we do. You really want to have to serve the public. Now, obviously everyone has a passion to want to protect the resource and protect the public. But so much of what we do is that community outreach. And personally, I love just getting out and talking to people. When I check someone and they're like, I've never been checked by a warden before, and I've been fishing for 20 years, Vaughn mentioned it before, you contact this 12-year-old kid that shot his first buck and he's got buck fever and he can't stop shaking. It's those little things that you kind of take for granted at the time. And then as you kind of go on in your career, you learn to really appreciate those things. Great question.
And I would double exactly what Amanda says, is being able to make that difference and the fulfillment of the job. As I mentioned earlier, for folks that were on, being able to make that difference in our communities, in somebody's life, whether positive or otherwise, it's that making a difference, taking a picture with the kid catching his first fish and helping him ID that fish, unhooking it for him, whatever the case may be. But working with the community and building those relationships is probably my favorite thing.
Fantastic. So one more time, we're putting up here just the email address. If you do have any other questions, as well as that link to go ahead and register for that April 6th session with us at 6 p.m. Again, we'll be sending out an email likely tomorrow. So watch your inboxes for that. And we've also kept tabs on all of these questions. So if we didn't get to your question, stay tuned. We will follow up with you via email. And with that, thank you guys. Have a great evening. And we hope to hear from you soon. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.